It's me, Capri. My mommy is the best. Super mom will be best. She helps mommies get their smiles back, their giggles back, and their sparkle back. You wait for the show. Brush. Get ready for It's Super Slowly and Super Strong.
Welcome to Healing for the Soul podcast, sponsored by Supermom Robin Stoltman, where every week I feature different guests to empower you to become the best version of yourself through different methods you may not have heard of or even thought of. If you are ever looking for a virtual assistant, I highly recommend Sphere Rocket to delegate any business-related tasks like grow your social medias, book appointments, and much more that all businesses require, boosting your sales, productivity, and much more. The link to Sphere Rocket is at the bottom of this episode, and this is Season 6, Episode number 37. And today I have my guest, Paul Petera, who is a seasoned leadership executive with more than 30 years of experience in financial services, risk management, and organizational culture. He spent his career helping individuals and teams grow by leading with intention, building psychological safety, and fostering cultures of continuous improvement. Paul is also the founder of Petera Leadership Group and an advocate for mentoring, coaching, and elevating women in leadership. His new book, Built on Purpose, Lessons in Leadership and Culture, blends heartfelt storytelling, strategic insights, and a practical framework for leaders looking to grow personally and professionally. Across 10 chapters, Paul shares the experiences and tools that helped him grow from a young professional into a trusted executive. He explores themes such as self-awareness, emotional intelligence, intentional cultural design, and mentoring with vulnerability and clarity. The book concludes by helping readers reflect on what truly matters in their own leadership journeys. And today, let's find out more as we are talking about purpose-driven leadership. And thank you, Paul, so much for being here with our audience today. I greatly appreciate it.
Grateful to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, why is good leadership such an outlier?
It's a great question. We could probably spend a ton of time on. From my personal observation, I don't think that collectively in the United States that our leadership prowess has grown at the same rate that other disciplines have grown. Certainly not technology and operations. I think that's due to a couple of reasons. First of all, it takes effort and it takes intention. And I think there's a couple of things at play there. Number one, I don't know if organizations consistently invest in their people and in their people's leadership development the way that they probably would like to. It tends to be one of the first things that's cut when organizations are looking to trim their budgets. So part of it is just that consistent attention to leadership development. Some of that is also impacted a little bit by the fact that people don't typically stay in organizations as long as they used to. So it's a little bit harder to justify the return or compute the return on investment that folks would like. The other part, though, is us individually. We have to invest in our own development. It has to be important to us. I've always said, if it's important to you, you'll prioritize it. If you prioritize it, you'll do it. If you do it, you'll get better at it. And so I think we individually are not off the hook. We bear some responsibility here. And I think sometimes we get buried in the, how do I meet this month or this quarter's, goals, without a full understanding that playing the long game is growing as a leader intentionally building strong cultures for the long haul, and those things becoming a flywheel effect on the actual measurements that you're being held to outwardly.
I would agree with you, especially like for a lot of things in like the organization when you talked about like for the personal growth, for that part of it, I know like that's the very first thing that gets cut, but it also at the same time it hurts the organization when they're doing that. And then like one of the things that boggles my mind yet, like even in doing work with one-to-one, is that people, they're like, well, they don't want to do the work, but they, like some people they'll pay, but then they don't really want to do the work. And it's like, why would you pay for something, but then not follow up with doing the work? It's so much more rewarding.
It is. It's somewhat perversely a microcosm of society, period. We've got shorter attention spans. It's a lot easier to pay somebody to do a thing than to do the thing yourself. And so some of it's that, there's this constant barraging of folks from the outside in to gain, that 4 seconds of your attention. It's just gotten really noisy. And I think a lot of ingredients have led individuals and companies to not consistently prioritize what is really a long game.
I would agree with you, because it is a long-term game. That is what I've been finding out. I'm like, you seem to think after so much developing oneself that you could be done like after 7 years. I'm still going. One person is still going. I pretty much figured out, like, once you get in it, you're constantly developing, constantly evolving, keep expanding, keep doing more. So why is the self-awareness the most overlooked truth in leadership?
Well, first, because it's invisible. It's not something you can outwardly manage. Like I said, leaders are trained to focus outward on goals and metrics and performance and results. But the most powerful leadership starts inward. And in fact, the way that I laid the book out sort of emphasizes that. The first third of the book is self-awareness, authenticity, purpose, intentionality, humility. Those are the ingredients, and the reason I laid the book out the way that I did is you can't build a strong organization. You can't build a sustainable leadership model if you haven't built those things for yourself first. If we don't understand our own values or the impact we have on others, then we can't truly lead others. If we don't know what our purpose is, how in the world would other folks that follow us be able to make the connection themselves, or for you to be able to make the connection for them? You've got to know what you stand for and what's important to you, and then you've got to be able to, integrate that in with the organization that you're leading and making sure that those purposes align. And then you can work on your team. So for me, it's overlooked because it's not something you can measure. And the old song and dance is you can't manage what you can't measure. So it's harder. But over time, you just see, when you look at organizations and you see which ones are well run, well managed, where everyone's rowing in the same direction, and you see ones that aren't. It's very easy to see which ones are on which side of the fence. You got to dig in to understand, what are the root causes of that? And a lot of times it goes back to the capabilities of the leadership and the self-awareness of the leadership.
I was gonna say, it's reminding me of, like, as a family, like when we're in a family organization, it's like you can see like who's raising their children to be successful and those who don't raise them to be successful. It's very much that way. Like I was telling my husband, I'm like, when you get 2 people that are followers, the children grow up just to be followers in the world. That's why I'm like, it works better when you get at least one of the parents, the mom or the dad, to be the leader. Typically it's the dad. In my case, it's me, that I'm the leader. But still, it's like it works better when you have one person that knows where they want to go, what they're doing, how to build, how to do things, how to manage it all, versus you just get 2 followers that have 0 clue what they're doing.
Yeah, there's absolute truth in that. I think and again, I started the book with one of the first lessons I ever learned in my professional life, and it was a lesson on self-awareness. And it was a very simple thing that my manager at the time said to me, and I was not managing people yet. But he pulled me into his office and he said, "Paul, I need you to understand one thing. People are always watching. People are always looking to see how you are reacting to things, positive or negative, how you react to stress, how you react to success, what you have to say on matters of import. And that's a responsibility that you have to have. And once you understand that people are always watching you, then you understand that you have a responsibility for self-awareness. And I say that because that is one of the key lessons that unlocks leadership development, both in the workplace and as well as raising leaders as children. There's a lot of things, I'm sure we'll get into them, but there's so many things in the workplace and in building culture that translate directly over into how you raise your children. And if they understand that they have a responsibility, that everyone is a leader in some regard, someone is going to be attracted to them in a leadership capacity in whatever small way it is, then that unlocks something into their personal growth.
I love that. I just love talking about the leadership part of it, because I'm thinking about like what you had said for the self-awareness part of it. You do have to become aware of it, very much of what you're good at, what your skills are. And then like one of the things for me, so one of the questions that I have is, like, in leadership, we're often told like to focus on your strengths versus your weaknesses. What's your take on choosing to not develop the weaknesses and instead just focusing solely on the strengths?
I'm actually a big advocate of that. And I'm an advocate of that because I read a book called Strengths Finder, written by Tom Rath. And he wrote the book and had an associated assessment that comes along with it that was developed by Gallup, the organization that does polling. And the concept of the book is you've got, I think it's 34 strengths. There are 34 strengths that you can be measured by. And the concept of that is there are things that you are innately strong at, and there are things that you are not. And the concept of the book is leverage the things that you are really strong on, and don't try to make your number 34 strength your number 27 strength, because it's not going to move the needle for you. It's like, where do you want to, if you have 10 pennies, where do you want to put your pennies? Put them in the things that you're good at. It's a really cool concept. It's also really helpful if you have a family or a team that you're leading, to have everybody take the assessment, because then you can understand if somebody has this strength, then they're more apt to act in this way or be motivated in that way. And it's actually a really good way to get behind the curtain on how people are wired. So for example, my number one strength is a relator. And to put that in a nutshell, I'm much more comfortable having a conversation and getting to know at a deeper level one person. I'm not going to go into a room and find great value or entertainment or joy in shaking hands with 500 people and having 500 best friends. I'm much more likely to find somebody that I have something in common with and go into the corner where we can have a real conversation for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour. It doesn't mean that I can't, shake 500 people's hand. It's going to wear me out. I'm going to be much more exhausted at the end of the evening after having done that. I won't feel as fulfilled as I would have having done, the sitting in the corner deal. But there's 34 different examples of those things. And so the whole point of the book is, if you're good at 5 things, focus on those 5 things, and don't revel in the fact that your woo strength is 34th, as mine is. I can't win people over and be a cold calling salesperson. Okay, if I need one of those on my team, I'll hire one.
I like that, because that's one of those things that us entrepreneurs tend to get into. We have to wear all the different hats, do all the different things, and then when it comes time to delegate, we're like, no, I want to hold on to it.
It's true. It's true. And what's crazy is when you build a team and you recognize, with self-awareness and maybe with the aid of StrengthsFinder, I'm really good at these 4 things, and I'm never going to be any good at these other 4 or 5 things. Okay, I am humble enough to know that I'm not going to be good at those things. Let me surround myself with people that are. And believe it or not, the same energy that I get from having a conversation with one person in the corner of a room, somebody else has the same energy and joy of something else that I don't have. So now, it's not just a sum of your parts. It's you've got a skill now on your team that you'll never have, that somebody else has, and now you're starting to become more than just the sum of your parts.
I love that. So why did you decide to write your book?
Well, some of it was, again, that first lesson on self-awareness was something that kicked something up inside of me. I think I've had something like 19 or 20 bosses in my 34 years of my career. And you pick up things along the way.
Yep.
I noticed that there were far more organizations that weren't as well run as they should have been. That was notable to me. I saw when a new leader came in to an organization and moved the needle that there was something that was causing that. So sort of my own learning journey was a big piece of that. But I think where I really got to was the last 5 to 10, maybe 15 years of my career. What's important to you as you get older changes. And what I really wanted to do was help others on their leadership journey, sort of pay it forward a little bit. I've had folks that have helped me in my career, whether they knew it or not sometimes. But I thought if I can write a book that is approachable and easy to understand, easy to use, relatable with stories, and that can help somebody on their leadership journey, then that's far more valuable than any quarterly metric or annual metric I might have had in my career. So take a great big responsibility in helping people and organizations get better. And I thought this would be a great avenue to do that. That wasn't just showing up 9 to 5 every day.
Well, and I like that as well, because I'm also thinking, would this benefit parents as well at the same time? Because so I'm a big fan of John Maxwell, part of the Maxwell leadership team.
Yes.
And my thing is that would this still benefit? Because for me, what I have found to be true so far in raising the children and raising all the children that I have is that leadership very much starts in the home, and then I'm taking those lessons and I'm applying them. I've got one that's he runs the circus. That's all he's like the ringleader. He knows, if you remove him out of, when he's out with my mom or just out and about somewhere else, but I've got all the other kids they're they don't know what to do, but it's kind of funny because the ringleader's out, so then someone else takes the role of the ringleader of the group, but it's they know their place yet though when the ringleader is back. But it's okay, I gotta figure out how to win him over to help me with the leadership that he's so good at. That makes any sense?
It does. It's like a little miniature sociology experiment.
It is, in a way.
Well, all of the things that you look for as ingredients of a successful organization and successful people to make up that organization, where did they all come from? They came. Some of those traits came to that company and that person from somewhere, and they came from their upbringing. They came from their experiences and all the time that they had leading up to that point. I have a pyramid. If you don't mind, I'll go into it a little bit here.
Oh,
I call
fine.
Yeah, I call the anatomy of a successful organization. It's just a pyramid with 3 tiers and one item around it. And the base of the pyramid is core values, beliefs, and behaviors and mindsets. These are the things that are core to a person. These are the things that are likely not going to change by the time you're 18, 20, 25 years old. They are all the things that folks are learning as they're being brought up. This is a huge responsibility of parenting. Obviously, some of this is nature versus nurture, but it's a huge piece. And as you see folks that are in their teens and growing up into their 20s, you can tell. How many times have you heard somebody say, "Well, you've done a great job with him or her. They were raised right." Okay, so there's a piece of that. There's this core piece, and you hope that the core values, beliefs, and mindsets of that person align with yours as a leader and with the organizations as a whole. It's just that, and that's why it's the base of the pyramid. The middle is skills and competencies, and those are things that ideally you are learning and growing your entire life. But you're also coming to that organization with those skills and competencies. Again, those are things that you're learning and developing in your formative years. So there's a translation to parenting and upbringing there. Clarity of goal and clarity of purpose is the top of the pyramid. And I feel like that's more, it's not 100% on the leader, but the majority of the responsibility of that lies with the leader to, understand their purpose and their goals, the organizations, and make sure that the folks in the organization have that clarity as well. So I would say that's maybe an 80-20 responsibility there. And then the big accelerator, I say, in an anatomy of a successful organization is trust. In my pyramid, the word trust goes around all three sides. And when folks can trust one another, when they can trust their leader, when their leader can trust them, when they can trust their coworkers or teammates, you don't have that pause, you don't have that uncertainty. You can just go. I trust you to do your job. I trust you'll tell me something and you'll follow through on it. I trust that you have the skills and competencies to do what you say you're going to do. If you don't have to worry about that and you just inherently trust, you've got a successful organization. Well, where do you learn trust? Where do you learn earning trust? Where do you learn that trust takes a long time to develop and 5 minutes to disintegrate? You learn that in your upbringing. So all of the things that you look for in a successful organization, you're going to develop and learn when you're when you're being raised as a child.
Yeah, 100% on that, because that's like we live out our life script, what we learn from childhood, from that conception to 8 years old. And it's one of those things that unless you're willing to pay the money to do something like hypnosis to change it, it's not going to change. It's just one of those things. So what inner work must leaders do before they can build these strong teams?
They have to get clear on who they are, what they stand for, what they're willing to compromise, what they're not willing to compromise on. These are sort of core to, who you are as a leader. They need to reconcile their ego with their purpose. They need to slow down enough to reflect rather than just react. When you've done that work and you know your values and what your blind spots are, you've acknowledged them and you're willing to be vulnerable, then you can show up for your team in a way that builds trust and builds credibility. It also, I like to use the term slow the game down. You do these things, it allows you to slow the game down in whatever line of work that you're in, where you tend to have fewer surprises as you go along because you can predict what might happen and be ready for those things.
I like the ability to predict, like before something would happen, especially like the more like you become aware of something. Like I know, like one of the things that people tend to think about is how Christmas time, it can be like the holidays kind of smash Thanksgiving into Christmas at the same time.
Yeah.
The grocery, like Walmart, they smash all the holidays in at once. But like when you think about the holidays, people tend to think that they're sad for some people or they're happy for some, for others. And it's like at the same time, when you become aware of why am I not so great in the month of December, as an example, then you can be like, you know what, I can accept this, I can move on. So that's pretty much what you're saying, if I understood correctly, is that becoming aware allows you to have that because you've reflected.
When you're able to reflect, I'm gonna hit that on two different fronts.
Yeah.
When you are able to slow the game down, what that does, you've created room for reflection and thought. That allows you then to, and I talk about it in the book a little bit, the 4 Ps. You plan, you prioritize, you prepare, and you practice. Those are the things that you do in advance that allows you to not have to react later. And that's super, super important. So you have a plan for your family, you have a plan for your children's growth and education and development. Maybe you break that out into years or groups of years, or maybe even shorter increments than that. You prioritize if this is important to me, then some things are not going to be able to make the cut. I cannot spend time on those right now. And everybody needs to know what those things are, includes least of all you, or most of all you. You need to prepare for what might happen, so that you have a backup plan. That allows you to, if something happens that you maybe didn't plan as your main course, that you can say, okay, I knew this might happen. I'm going to do this. And then practice. I needed to make a 4P. A lot of it's just getting reps, but the real key there is experience. One thing that I found is there's no substitute. 25-year-old me wouldn't have known this. There's no substitute for experience.
No.
The reason that I'm far less surprised about things now than I was when I was 25 is because I've seen some version of them multiple times in the last 30 years. There's no substitute for experience. And again, when I was 25 years old, I knew the job that I did, and I was proficient at the job, but that had nothing to do with how does an organization run? How do you influence other people? How do systems work? How does this organization get impacted by this organization and vice versa? How do people operate? What are their buttons, the good ones to push? And all of that comes from experience. And just like the law of compounding, when you're investing, you may gradually increase your savings, but if you continue doing it month over month, you get to a point 20 or 25 years later where there's an accelerant to your balances because it's compounded over time. It's the same thing as experience. You'll be able to call on experiences from 20 years ago that seemingly have nothing to do with what you're doing right now, just like that, if you're self-aware.
That is very true. And then it's exciting when something comes back up and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I remember this from before on how I handled it before. What can I do differently now so I don't make the same mistake?
That's exactly right. Paul Petera today is in many ways a different person from Paul Petera 30 years ago. And it's because of all of those sets of experiences and failures and successes.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful part. So before we close our show today, what's the best way for our audience to get in contact with you?
So I have a website, which is paulpetera.com, PAULPETERA. And that is the main page of that website is all about the book that we just released last month. But there's contact information there. There's other pages for services that I can provide. But if you're interested about leadership, if you're interested about organizational culture or self-awareness or any of the topics that we talked about today, I'm always happy to have that conversation. It's just another avenue where I can potentially help others get better on their journey.
Awesome. So what was the name of your book? You said it's Built on Purpose. And where can people find it at?
Built on Purpose, Lessons in Leadership and Culture. You can go to the website. There's links for it there, but it is being sold both directly on my website as well as on Amazon in all three formats right now: hardcover, paperback, and audio or ebook through Kindle. Looking at potentially doing audiobook. Right now, it's those three avenues.
Awesome. So I just love that because I like the leadership, like I said, for being able to, everything you talked about is very, very important. So I just want to remind everybody to be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Healing for the Soul podcast, and keep coming back for more episodes. Thank you for your time and your energy while listening to today's episode of Healing for the Soul podcast.
Quack, quack. Bye-bye. Wow, real next time. Now you got it.